All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Orange Crush podcast presented by Chick-fil-A. Guys, I'm riding solo today, so put those arm trays in the upright position. Lock in that seatbelt because we got a heck of a guest in here today. We got Faxon Childress from 105.5 The Roar. If you've heard him from 9 to 12 on Monday through Friday, you know that this guy brings some heat. And with a couple of topics we got today, I expect nothing less from my good friend Faxon. How you doing today, man? Good to have you on.
I'm doing great. It's always an honor to come on the Orange Crush podcast, so definitely excited to be here. Sad we didn't get hoodie today, but I understand it's a busy Friday for everybody, and always excited to rock out with you on a podcast, Grayson. Let's have some fun.
Absolutely, man. As I understand it, we talked a little beforehand. This is your Jordan flu game, so a little bit of a pressure and stakes added to this.
A little bit. I started with The Roar, 105.5 The Roar, as you see under my name. Full-time about 9 months ago. I had taken 2 sick days prior to this week. Took Wednesday and Thursday as sick days. Been dealing with a little bit of a cold, some stomach issues as well, but we're on the up and up. And I had an opportunity to join the best Clemson podcast out there. So why would I say no? I can put up with some conditions for a couple of minutes and give some takes. So had to hop on with my guy Grayson.
Speaking of the up and up, we just got news that Gordon Sellars, we'll start there, has just committed to Clemson. It's the Tigers' four-star wide receiver to join their ranks in the 2026 class. As of 12:53, as we're recording this, Clemson has leapfrogged Ohio State to get the number 2 overall composite ranking, according to 24/7 Sports. Big day for Clemson. It's been a big spring for this staff, and Tyler Grisham goes 3 for 3 on wide receiver talent. Gets a nice slot guy, gets a very smooth, crisp route runner, and then you get the speedster and Connor Solomon. But Faxon, this is a very important class for this group. You got a lot of players that came back for this year, but also in the back of everyone's minds, this is sort of a one-year process. They're putting all their chips into the table for 2025. Not that 26 is a rebuilding year, but there's going to be a lot of young talent that Clemson's going to have to rely on to produce. And certainly as this class has developed, it's looked like there are going to be some dogs in this group. What do you just sort of your instant reaction to the news?
Yeah, I think it is so exciting, and I think that this 2026 class is shaping up to be one of Coach Sweeney's best. It's early, and obviously there's still a lot to unfold across the country. We know that in 2025, a commitment is really just a commitment, right? I'm not saying any of these kids are going to decommit from Clemson, but at the same time, until pen is to paper, personally, I'm not sharpieing anyone in on the roster for the 2026 season, just with how volatile things can be. But the early makings of this class would be an all-time class for Clemson. I mean, you look on 247 Sports right now, they have Clemson as the number 2 overall class in the country. On 3's got Clemson trending towards the top 5. I'm not a big recruiting rankings guy personally, because I think it's a little bit flawed. Each service has their own way to evaluate. I prefer watching the players with my own 2 eyes. But of the 14 commits that Clemson's got right now, everything I've seen on tape shows me that the Tigers are slated to land some stars. And we talk about that wide receiver position, which was undeniably one of the biggest weaknesses on Clemson's roster from, I would say, 2021 to 2024. Now that pendulum has started to swing. We see Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore earn starting spots last year. Tyler Grisham undeniably hit on both of those recruits. He now hits on a trifecta of 4 stars. A lot of the fan base has been super critical of Tyler Grisham. I've always been in the camp of, if his players actually stayed healthy, how much different would the discourse of Clemson football look like and the discourse on Tyler Grisham look like over the last 5 years? It's a hypothetical. It's not worth spending too much time on. But all of that to be said, big shout out to Coach Grish, big shout out to Coach Sweeney. They're getting the job done on the recruiting trail right now, and this is shaping up to be an absolutely monster class for the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, and you look at some of the talent. You said that the tape doesn't lie. And I think with the 2025 class, there's going to be a lot of fans that, like you said, they're going to hold their breath until National Signing Day and that pen is officially put to paper, just because of the roller coaster effect that those months really took, where you got guys like Jordan Young that commit in November, decommit weeks later. Bryce Davis commits to Clemson, ends up committing to Duke sometime after that. So this is all sort of a wait and see, and that's just the state of things. And it'll be fascinating to see. But I think the idea of Clemson's star power on the recruiting trail has always been something that stuck out to me. Is 2025 was a dip in sort of the quality, the production. Although I do think there are some dudes in this class, particularly like Braden Jacobs is one that I am very, very high on to produce early. But this is a class that they're going to need some guys to produce early. And at wide receiver, we've seen the difference makers that Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore were already on campus. And you've got fans clamoring for them to start after the Georgia game, and maybe rightfully should have started that Georgia game. So good to see how that will work out, especially with a new quarterback at the helm in 26. But Faxon, the one thing that I've seen in the news popping around the last couple weeks, a certain Tennessee quarterback is maybe heading to UCLA. And I just know that you bring some heat. And I was like, I just know we got to get him on for this. I just got to get the thoughts on, I've been trying to pronounce this guy's last name for the last week in preparation of doing this. And now that I sit here, I'm just like, I'm not going to try to botch it. And so just with Nico's situation, the Tennessee first true holdout of spring football, collegiate athletics, it feels like. Josh Heupel says, no, we're not playing this way. And truth be told, it moved pretty quickly, but I think it's the ramifications on the sport are pretty significant. Love to just get your thoughts on that. And then how you think this reflects back on Clemson, something I'd love to dive into as well.
Yeah, I'm going to put my best broadcaster hat on. Nico Iamaleava is, I'm pretty sure how it's said. I've tried to read the pronunciation.
That sounds really close.
Nico Iamaleava. So if I'm wrong on that, I'm wrong on that. But in all seriousness, Tennessee QB that's been the trailblazer for maybe what could be a new trend in the transfer portal, but it hasn't necessarily gone according to plan for Nico. Now, I will say this is a multi-pronged topic with Nico, okay? We have some conflicting messaging coming out of both camps, being Tennessee, being the agent social media world, and then being Nico and his dad, right? Nico's camp is really focusing on the system, right? And they're saying, well, this isn't about the money. This is defamation of character to an extent. My son is not a gold digger. These are some of the things that Nico, his dad, has come out and said, including calling Pete Makos from On3 a word that is not appropriate for the Orange Crush podcast because we'd like to keep that monetization in line for the YouTube folks.
YouTube will come after us, man.
We're not going to delve into that, but just know there was some profane language used on Pete Nakos' name, and Pete Nakos ended up coming out on top of that because after that report, Nico's camp pushes back and says it's a load of BS. Well, he hits the portal the next day after skipping practice. You can put 2 and 2 together and see that Nakos did indeed have the scoop on that. My question to Nico and the people in his camp is, if it's truthfully about the system, okay, and it's truthfully about Tennessee's offense, why did you commit to Tennessee? Why did you commit to Tennessee? And not only why did you commit to Tennessee, why did you agree to redshirt a year at Tennessee? Then why did you play yet another season at Tennessee? We're talking about 2.5 to almost 3 years since Nico showed up on campus at this point, okay? You can talk about Josh Heupel. What Josh Heupel has done at Tennessee has been unbelievable. He's an offensive mind that got Hendon Hooker drafted in the 2nd round, a washout from Virginia Tech who was looking for one last lifeline for his career. We all remember the game where Hendon Hooker's too cold, right? In Blacksburg, and he's walking over to the sidelines and he's freezing cold, and everybody's like, man, this kid can't play. Josh Heupel turned him into a superstar at the collegiate level, had Tennessee flirting with a 4-team college football playoff berth. They beat Alabama. They tore down the goalposts. That's only 2 years in the rearview mirror, folks. And Tennessee, with bad quarterback play this year in games that actually mattered with Nico, went right back to the college football playoff. So all of that to be said, if it's really about the system, okay, and it's really about getting Nico geared up to go to the pros and playing in a pro-style offense and this, that, and the third, why did you commit to Tennessee in the first place? Why did you stay at Tennessee for 2.5 years? And if you had issues with the system last year, why didn't you hop in the portal or declare your intention to enter the portal after the season concluded and enter in the previous window? You went through all of spring practice, all of spring ball, acting like you're going to be the Tennessee quarterback. And guess who gets screwed more by this than anything? Josh Heupel. You invest millions of dollars into a deemed generational talent quarterback that threw 8 of his 19 touchdown passes last year over the course of 3 games, 2 of which were at the non-P4 level, a third of which was Vandy. In his other 10 games, he threw 11 combined touchdowns against the teams that are actually capable of being up there with the best in the country. He went to the college football playoff and got blown out. They lost in the SEC championship game. Their signature win was over an Alabama team that ended up being fraudulent and losing to Michigan in a bowl game as a 17-point favorite. I don't understand Nico's side of the story here. But with that being said, let me take things on the flip side of the coin, okay? I don't necessarily believe that he needs to be getting bashed at the level that he is. I'll be honest. I know that just sounded like a little bit of bashing from me, and it could sound like I'm talking out of two sides of my mouth. I'm more upset at Nico's family and Nico's camp for trying to control the narrative, because we haven't once throughout this process heard direct word of mouth from Nico Iamaleava. I think that's the most frustrating part of this whole transfer portal, NIL, roster volatility, roster churning, is that a lot of the times these narratives are being cast on players, and we're not actually privy to the accurate information surrounding the situation. A point comes to mind from last year with Clemson men's basketball. Let's just say after the Elite Eight run, an unnamed men's basketball player enters the transfer portal, okay? This is somebody that nobody online, none of the fan base, large parts of the media, nobody knows personally, like has a good relationship with them person to person, okay? I do. I was privy to some information and some conversations about what happened by entering the transfer portal, and I knew what the reasoning and the rationale was. Yet you go online and you scroll on Twitter and you go through these comment sections, and it's gold digger, selfish, betrayal of Clemson, not a true Clemson man, all of these things. That's where you kind of lose me, okay? That's where you lose me, because a lot of times there are context and nuances surrounding these situations that the media, the fans, etc., are not privy to. I'm always going to side with the student athlete to an extent, because there are situations at play, whether it be family, whether it be finances, whether it be relationships, whether it be geography. There are a lot of different things that go into transferring. Okay, system, right? Maybe that is a legitimate thing. Maybe they really hate the system. There's a lot of different factors. So I'm not somebody that is just chomping at the bit to slam the student athlete. That feels like it is a super common thing in the current day and age. That's not where I come from on this. But in the case of Nico, I would like to hear direct word of mouth from Nico. And I'm aware that that's not how this world works right now. And we're still trying to figure out that gray area with student athletes and what their media responsibilities look like and what can they say for themselves and how much of it has to go through their agents. I'm aware. All of this is new, right? But in professional sports, when Kevin Durant goes to the Warriors, you at least get to hear from KD a little bit of his reasoning for going to the Golden State Warriors. When LeBron goes to Miami, he's having a documentary with the TVs and the glitz and the glam. I'm not saying we need to go to that extent for student athletes, but with the professionalization and commercialization of collegiate sports, it feels like these student athletes should have an increased level of accountability for actually having to answer for things to the media, just the way that I view things. Or at least we can get a direct word of mouth explanation from Nico himself that's not PR spun to all hell by his agent. That's just kind of where I'm at on this. So I'm not super upset at Nico. People are going to transfer. There are regular students that consider transferring on a daily basis and do transfer. I get it. Sometimes the situation's going to be better for you. Nico's from California. Maybe he just misses his family and he's homesick, and he didn't like the culture shock of living in a southern city in Tennessee. Maybe that's the reason. But don't jump to conclusions about someone's character would be my advice to people without knowing the full context of the situation. And for me personally, I'm not mad at Nico. I'm mad at the messaging that's come from his family and his camp surrounding the situation.
Yeah, it's all a little bit messy. And can you imagine, Faxon, if we had like the decision thing for something like this, it would really just put the cherry on top of what's been a total mess. But I think what's really fascinating about this entire situation is not just sort of what it means for Tennessee and Nico and his camp. And obviously people are making comparisons to Nico's dad and a certain Clemson dad. If you can read between the lines to our dear audience, you certainly can do that. But the way that Clemson, I had written about this on TigerNet and been looking forward. I've been dying to talk to you about this. It's something that I just wanted to let you go. But the way this sort of reflects back on Clemson, I think, is in a very unique way, because we look at Cade Klubnik, we look at the returning starters that the Tigers have retained for this specific season, and they're paying top dollar for a lot of these guys. Klubnik, I believe, is one of the only two quarterbacks in the Power Four to have been with his offensive coordinator for the last 3 years. I believe Georgia Tech is the other one, and that's courtesy of Ross Taylor, who does amazing work for Clemson football. But just sort of it underscores the amount of gravity that just sort of comes with this situation. I think for Tiger fans, it's just like, man, there's so much just crazy stuff going on in this world of NIL, transfer portal. Yeah, Clemson dipped their toe into the transfer portal, and of course they're spending a lot of money to keep these guys here. But the fact that they're here, there's not could you imagine, Facts, and the ramifications of a I don't like Garrett Riley's system after 2.5 years, essentially, and just gets out of town. And it's just a mixed messaging. I think that's maybe where people are having an issue, is that the message is all over the place. Just to have in your coverage here with Clemson, knowing that very more likely than not, this is going to be the roster that sticks in the fall, that stability, how do you feel like that reflects? And it feels like now Clemson was always they drew the ire of fans and national media for not going with the times, but their style seems to be pushing back in a big way, in a very positive way.
Yeah, I've got a lot to say on this, Grace. I'm glad you brought me in on this. So I'm gonna take my soapbox for a little bit. First and foremost, Dabo Swinney is a lot better man than I am. And I promise this is going somewhere if y'all walk with me. You can listen to my show, a little shameless plug, from 9 to 12, 9 a.m. to noon. Every Monday through Friday on 105.5 The Roar, which is the flagship for Clemson Athletics. And if you listen to my show, you've heard me preach a similar sentiment. But I say that Dabo is a better man than I am because on my show, when I get something right, we talk about it. When I get something wrong, we talk about it, right? We praise, we criticize fairly. But when I get something right, I'm going to gloat a little bit. And all of this is to be said. Dabo Swinney was right. Dabo Swinney was right 5 years ago. Dabo Swinney was right 7 years ago. Dabo Swinney has been right on this the whole time. And he has not once come out and thrown it in everybody's face talking about, I told you guys that people were going to start getting picked off of each other's bench. And I told you guys that this was going to get super volatile with it. No, he has taken the correct approach with leaning into and adapting to the new stage and the new landscape of college football. But that doesn't mean that he was not correct with his original assessment of NIL and the transfer portal. And I think people really blur the lines with what Dabo says and almost manipulate his words to push a narrative and to push an agenda about what they want him to be about. Dabo has never been anti-portal. Dabo has never been anti-NIL. Dabo was anti what is happening right now, which is we rush in with a bunch of dollar signs with no rules, no regulations, and no legislature. And you reap what you sow in a large part of that, and you get what you get, and you can't pitch a fit about it because at the end of the day, everybody pushing for this had to see this in the rearview mirror as something that could happen, and it ended up unfolding that way. As far as it relates to Clemson, I'm just unbelievably grateful for Dabo Swinney, to be candid. I'm unbelievably grateful for him to be the coach at Clemson. Obviously, I'm an alum. I would say that my fandom has been, subsided to an extent because of what my current role is and in efforts to be objective. But obviously, there's always going to be a soft spot for me for Clemson football. And there's no denying that in the same way where I'm sure there is one for you, Grayson, being alums. It just is how it is, and it is how it works. So I'm grateful for Coach Swinney. Being able to see him up close and personal and get with these practices and the media availabilities and the press conferences. Dabo is who he is. I think a lot of people from the outside looking in might think, oh, he's a little bit corny or he can't possibly be this positive or he can't possibly be this happy. Nope, that's who he is. That's 100% who he is every single day of his life. And you can think he's corny and you can not agree with everything that he has to say, but he's a great football coach. He's a great man, and he's a great leader of young men. And under his tutelage at Clemson's broken all sort of records related to academics, related to football. They've elevated this university, this institution, this athletic department to a level that I never thought possible, popping up new facilities everywhere on campus, whether it be for academia or whether it be for athletics. And all of that is about sticking to your principles, Grayson. And this is where I tie the loop on my long-winded answer to you. That's what makes this so special about Clemson is sticking to your principles. And it's about the retention element of it. And I know we started on Nico, and this is where I'm tying the knot. But when you have a place like Clemson and you hear the word culture, okay? Culture is the most nauseating word in 2025 to me because every coach throws it around like they have it. Every coach is going to tell you they got great culture. That's a part of the sell. That's a part of the spin. You go somewhere on a visit, you could be wherever. I'm not going to name drop any schools, but you could be wherever. They're going to tell you, oh, we've got a great culture, whether it's the truth or not. And when you have coaches that are disingenuous like that, it almost takes away from a place like Clemson that does undeniably have a great culture. And Grayson, the proof is in the pudding. 99 percentile retention, back-to-back seasons, top in college football and retaining elite talent. Clemson went to the college football playoff last year, won the ACC, and as a result, has the most returning production in college football. That is what happens when you practice what you preach. That is what happens when you are what you talk about. And with Dabo Swinney, I think it is just a superstar shining his radiating light onto the rest of the program here at Clemson. And it's a guy that shows up and does the work every single day like he has for a decade plus now as the head coach of the Tigers. And I think that when you have a leader like that, people are naturally going to gravitate towards him. And now that the financial element is a little bit more fair, and with the rev share and some of the money coming in now for Clemson football, you're seeing Clemson back in the top 5 of the recruiting rankings, and it's not necessarily a coincidence. So I think Clemson's got their swagger back. I think Dabo's got his fastball back, and I don't necessarily think he ever lost it. I think he just maybe changed the grip on it from a 4-seamer to a 2-seamer and got hit for a couple homers over the middle, and now he's going back to the bread and butter. But in all seriousness, the Tigers are here. It starts with Dabo, and if they keep retaining at an elite level, they're not going to be going anywhere for a long time, because you're going to look at these schools and you're going to look at these institutions that are roster churning and it's volatile and it's portal. That is going to become unattractive at some point. I promise. There is going to be a point in time where the pendulum swings and players want to play for schools where they know they are going to be able to play there for 4 years or they can develop. I understand it feels like, you're in a horror movie right now where everybody's jumping ship from year to year to year to year. And I get it. These agents are telling these kids to maximize their values and hop up in that portal. I'm not saying that that's going to go away, but I think you're already starting to see a little bit of a shift towards, hey, there might be a value in going somewhere for a year and developing. There might be a value in going to a place and staying there for 4 years. And when you look at how Clemson has put NFL talent out the last 15 years, Coach Sweeney's got every single record you can name of active head coaches, and he was second to Nick Saban before Saban retired. You can come to Clemson. You can get a great degree at a school that's getting better each and every year. You're going to stay for all 4 years. You're going to be developed into a great young man, and you're going to have a really darn good chance to go to the NFL if you put in the work. I think the sell speaks for itself, and I think this place really is special. And it's not just something that the local people gas up. I'm not from here, so I've seen the outsider's perspective. I grew up going to Georgia Tech games, etc. This place is different, Grayson.
I think someone may clip that on like Clemson's staff and just start throwing that out to the rest of the prospects here. They may be calling you up for a little bit of a stipend and be like, hey man, we may need more of this.
Listen, I mean it. I wouldn't come on here and BS. Last year I was the same person telling you guys that the standard needed to be higher, right? And that Clemson's defense needed to be better and there needed to be coaching staff changes. I'm honest. I think Clemson has a loaded coaching staff and roster and is in prime position to win a national championship. You're talking about 4 head coaches on Clemson's roster. Houston and Galloway as analysts is a joke. And I mean that in an endearing way because they are way overqualified to be analysts and could go be coordinators or play callers somewhere if they wanted to be. Tom Allin on the defensive side of the ball. Man, spot the damn ball. I'm ready, Grayson. I'm ready to play LSU right now.
Well, you mentioned Galloway and Houston. They're working for free right now. It's basically a volunteer role for those guys, which
is insane.
Yeah,
Monty Galloway is stamped. He's got so much respect. Mike Houston's a head coach, and they're both working for Dabo for free. That should tell you everything you need to know about Coach Sweeney right there. Truly.
Yeah. Well, there's the caveat that I think the schools that they priorly worked at, the contracts are being already paid out. So it's not like they're losing money this year, but to be able to come in there and be able to put a little zero next to the check to the name or not have to fill one out at all, certainly probably makes it easier logistically for that coaching staff. But head coaching power is always important, and you saw it with the Georgia teams, the best Ohio State teams, Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles, big time coordinators, getting those guys going for Ohio State. But Faxon, you had mentioned something with the 4-seam, 2-seam guy, changing it up with a baseball there. Might want to touch on that in a bit here with package ball. But I'd love to touch on the portal. You've been really connected with Sean Poppy. They've been really just popping off in the portal. Brownell has been doing an excellent job in the transfer portal. This podcast has really just been, it's like your press conference. I'm handing you the microphone and we're letting you fire it off, man. It's basically a Faxon Sports 2.0. Monday through Fridays, guys, 9 to 12. Tune in. I know I do when I get up and I get to work, and so get you fired up. It's almost like you're the Spot the Damn Ball podcast. I'm like, let's go.
And I take that with a lot of pride, Grayson. And you can tune in to hear Grayson Mann from 11 to 11:40 every Thursday as a part of our TigerNet Thursday installment. So if you want to hear Grayson and I yap it up a little bit more, tune in on Thursdays.
Yap.
But
we do tend
Grayson,
to yap.
were you trying to talk portal? I have that right, men's and women's.
It's been sort of, and I think I posted as a joke on Twitter. It was that clip of Luka and LeBron just passing the ball off to each other. I think Luka's on the post, and he's like, nah, you take it. And LeBron's like, nah, you got it. Might be seeing that in the playoffs tomorrow as they play the Timberwolves. But it was just Poppy and Brownell passing off the portal batons, being like, hey, it's your turn to make an announcement. But just roll through sort of your perspective with this, especially with the women's program. You and I have been talking back and forth just about how important of an offseason it was for not just Brownell, but Sean Poppy. And so we've gotten the big topics everyone's been clamoring for, and I'd love to sort of hear. There's a lot of contingents in our TigerNet audience that love what Brownell and Poppy have done. Brownell's obviously drawn the ire of some fans with the McNeese loss, but maybe gotten some good grace back with the portal additions. Your guy, RJ Godfrey's back on campus. Has to be good for you. But just love to get your take on what's been going down in Tiger Town.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, Grayson. So let's start on the men's basketball side with Coach Brownell. First and foremost, what an unbelievable pleasure to cover a historic regular season, the best regular season in Clemson men's basketball history, breaking program records for wins, conference wins, winning percentage, and conference winning percentage. That is nothing to scoff at. I understand it didn't end how anybody wanted it to end. And you played a really crappy first half up in Providence. I had a courtside seat to witness that, as did Grayson. It wasn't great, right? But you got to put it behind you, and you got to keep pushing forward and realize that this program has won 22-plus games 3 years in a row. They've got undeniable positive momentum and trajectory right now in the portal, on the recruiting trail, and more. And they've got a brand spanking new practice facility to help recruit to coming as well. This program's in very great hands. The last 3 years have been a blast. Let's hope they can keep it up this year with some of these portal additions and get back to that 20-win mark. Because, Grayson, I've got great relationships with everybody on the men's basketball staff, and I don't want to put pressure on anybody necessarily. But do you think it's fair to say that the expectation for Clemson men's basketball from here going forward is to win 20 games? I feel like that's probably pretty fair.
I really feel like we saw the pendulum shift after the Kentucky game this year, where had a lot of people telling me that, and I think it's crazy how Clemson in a way became a victim of its own success in a really quick fashion, where you had people telling you, this was before the McNeese game, that if Clemson hadn't made it to the second weekend of the tournament, that the season was considered a disappointment, which if that had been sort of thrown your way in 2021, that Clemson would reach a standard where the Sweet 16 was considered the ceiling or the bar that was set, and anything below that was a just complete failure. Clemson fans would probably be like, sign me up for that kind of standard. Like, what have we done in the last couple of years to earn that? And so Clemson, rightfully so, I think that the tournament, 20 wins is probably going to have to be the case to get you there in an ACC that's taken a little bit of a shot reputation-wise. But I do think it's probably fair, given the portal acquisitions you've built. Spoke to Nick Davidson yesterday, who told me that Brownell was waiting for him at the airport, and just sort of the unique touch that he's had on recruiting. I think Brownell certainly understood the urgency of this portal class. And pair that with Dylan Hunter, I think the P&R game, the stuff they're going to be able to combine in that front is going to be really fascinating. But sorry you were on like a tangent there, sort of cut you off. But
no,
I do think that 20 wins is probably fair, given you've reached back-to-back tournament appearances in Elite Eight, and you've notched some big-time wins. So it's not like Clemson is a stranger to beating a Kentucky on a December night, or Duke, or North Carolina. They've been there and done that in the regular season. So I do think fans expect a little bit more now from this coaching staff, and I think it's entirely fair to do so.
I agree, and you know what they call that, Grayson? That's elevating the floor, and that's what I feel like Brad Brownell has done. And listen, there's going to be critics, there's going to be people on your boards, there's going to be people under this video that are critical of Brad Brownell. I encourage everybody, when analyzing Brad Brownell, to take everything pre-2016 and just chuck it out of the back of your mind, because frankly, it doesn't really matter. We're in 2025. We're a decade removed from that 2015-2016 season played at the Bilo Center, right? And after Little John Coliseum has been renovated, Brad Brownell's gone to an Elite Eight, he's gone to a Sweet 16, and he's gone to 4 NCAA tournaments. And listen, given what the history of this program is, that is an unbelievably successful run from Brad Brownell. Winning 20-plus games in back-to-back seasons is nothing to scoff at either. He has raised the floor at this program, Grayson, and he has raised the ceiling with going to new heights of the Elite Eight and holding a 13-point lead in that game that I think we were both convinced courtside they were going to win out there in L.A. before Jaron Stevenson and Mark Sears caught fire and went on a classic Alabama heater that we all have come to hate over the years in Tuscaloosa with Nate Oates. But in all seriousness, I'm really enthused about what the future of this program looks like. And to dive a little bit deeper onto specific portal acquisitions, first, it starts with the departures. So I've been using the Calipari quote, tongue in cheek, there is no team. There is a team now. We are starting to see semblance of a team. A team is starting to be formed in Tiger Town, and it's a good team too. When you look at the front court, you feel really confident in the three bodies that you were able to acquire in the portal. Nick Davidson, Carter Welling, RJ Godfrey. All three are different profile players. All three are going to provide unique elements to your front court. With Davidson, 15-plus point per game guy at Nevada, all Mountain West level performer. I consider him a pick and pop specialist. I think he is so phenomenal in the pick and pop game. But what he's also got, Grayson, is that short roll. And for some audience members that might not know what I mean, a short roll is essentially when you set a pick and roll, and instead of going all the way to the basket to receive a pass for a layup, you stop about 3 feet after you start rolling to spot up for a little mid-range jumper. I can't tell you how many times I saw Coach Alford run that this year at Nevada. The last couple of seasons, really, especially on that right wing to get Davidson a little short roll, pocket pass, pick and pop game. And man, it's a beauty to watch when he's got a guard to orchestrate the offense like a Dylan Hunter, and we'll get to that. But Davidson really is enthusing for me with what he can do. He can play small ball five in a pinch. He's going to have to stay out of foul trouble, as are all three of these bigs, as we're going to talk about. But I think it's a really quality addition with one of the best players in the portal. Now, who many anticipate to be his front court running mate next to him right now at the starting five for the Tigers will be Carter Welling. Welling, the reigning WAC Defensive Player of the Year coming from Utah Valley, which is a really good program, to be frank, Grayson. Utah Valley is a great program. They've accomplished a lot over the years. So I feel like that's a really nice addition. He's a great athlete. He can get vertical. He can block shots. Foul trouble. 3 fouls a game in 24 minutes. That's where I'm a little bit concerned with Carter Welling and RJ Godfrey, and maybe even Nick Davidson against ACC competition, is staying out of foul trouble. But Welling can step out and shoot the three ball. He can be a lob threat on the pick and roll game. He can shoot the 18-footer. He's a really versatile player with multiple years of eligibility, which I think is the biggest sort of addition that you're going to get out of Carter Welling, is the fact that he's got a chance to come back next year and be an equally as good, if not better, player. So I like what Welling's going to be able to provide. And then RJ, obviously there's a little bit of bias. That's my guy. There's a little bit of bias that goes into RJ Godfrey for me. I will admit that, RJ and I went to the same high school. I've known him and his brother for a long time at this point. Two great dudes, great family. Love his parents as well. But with RJ, I'm just really excited for him to have the opportunity to blossom at a place he loves so much. Getting that personal relationship with him and being able to talk to him throughout the course of the season with his experience in Athens. I really felt for him at times, because there were times where he was struggling, and I'm just super excited for him to be back home in Clemson. I'm super excited for him to be with Coach Brownell. I know how much Coach Brownell loves RJ. And for those who don't know RJ, I'm not just saying this because this is my friend. Everybody that he knows will tell you this. RJ is one of the best dudes that you will ever know. One of the most wholesome, kind individuals who is doing the right things off the court, who is going out of his way to be a leader. And he was really heartbroken at the way that his season ended this year in Georgia and at Clemson with a lot of his guys that he still is very close with. So I think RJ's got a chance to be a 25 to 28 minute per game player, whether that's starting, whether that's coming off the bench. He's going to be a big part of this team. And the last time we saw him in a Clemson jersey, he was playing the best basketball of his entire career in the NCAA tournament. People forget that Bama had nothing. Bama had nothing for RJ Godfrey at all. He had 6 points and 4 rebounds in 4 minutes of the first half of the Elite Eight. He hit the and one to send Clemson up 10 before Jack Clark hit the 3 to send Clemson up 13. And then RJ picked up his second foul, and the whole game changed. He stepped up and knocked down those 2 free throws against Baylor in a game he played great in. He was phenomenal against Arizona, especially in the first half. The last we saw of RJ in orange was phenomenal basketball that I think he would tell you is probably the best of his career as well. So I'm very excited for what he's going to bring to the program. And then Grayson, I know we're going overtime here, so let me be a little bit more quick and expedite this process with the rest of the portal kids. Ephraim Butta Johnson from UAB. I'm not super high on him personally as a starter. I think if he is your microwave, 6-man bench spark plug type of guy, that maybe he's in certain closing lineups, right? Like even when we were seeing Wiggins start, Dylan was closing games this past season. So being a starter doesn't always necessarily mean you're going to finish the game as well. Maybe Butta Johnson's a guy that you like to finish the game instead of start the game. But he's versatile enough defensively. He can move his feet. He can shoot the three ball a little bit. He's looking to have a bounce back here. I'm enthused about the addition. I still think there's work to be done in the backcourt. And then you get a guy like Jake Whalen from Utah. I actually think this is a really underrated get. And I see a lot of the fan base that's like 6.3 points per game, 5 boards. What are you talking about? Okay, 2 years of eligibility, saw a monumental leap in production from year 1 to year 2, which indicates that there's still upside, can really shoot the three ball. Think Chauncey Wiggins' body, but does everything well that Chauncey Wiggins does poorly. And I don't mean that as a shot at Chauncey, who was my friend, but Chauncey is an unbelievably skilled and good offensive player that struggles on defense in the glass. Do you think that's a fair assessment, Grayson?
Yeah, and I think those struggles were magnified when the role was a little bit more intensified in the ACC tournament and against McNeese. They tried to give him more responsibility, and it ultimately backfired in a big way.
Yes, so Whalen is the same body type as Wiggins, except he is he's not super versatile offensively. He doesn't have the dribble moves, the step backs, or really even the three-point shooting of a Chauncey Wiggins, even though he's a pretty decent shooter. But this is a Brad Brownell player to a T, Grayson. People are going to freaking love this guy. I mean, this guy, he's getting dirty on the glass. He's diving for loose balls. He's playing physical. He's crashing in for putback dunks. I think this is the most underrated addition of the portal cycle for Coach Brownell and co. And he's got 2 years of eligibility as well. So you're shaping up to have a couple Utah boys in Welling and Whalen coming back for another year, provided they don't portal because it's volatile nowadays. But I'm really enthused about the additions Coach Brownell and staff have made thus far to combine with the returners of Dylan Hunter, the 3 true freshmen, and the 2 redshirt freshmen. You got to go get a scoring guard. That is the number one priority. I think you need a scoring guard, a wing, and you can call it a day. And I think Coach Brownell and his guys are going to be able to get it done because you want to know why, Grayson? It's what they've done each of the last 3 years in which they've won 22-plus games in each season, and all of which have been on the back of some big-time transfer portal additions.
Yeah, and those transfers have career years coming here. You have Gerard, Zachary, Victor Locken. I think Locken just had a pretty nice outing in the Invitational before the NBA Combine gets rolling here after the playoffs. But that's a discussion bookmarked for another time, maybe on a different podcast. We'll see. But Faxon, before we let you go, I wanted to quickly touch on Poppy. We'll be getting you'll hear it here first. We're getting an exclusive sit-down with Sean Poppy next Thursday that you can only find on TigerNet.com, so be excited about that. If you've stuck all the way also to the end of the show and heard Faxon and I's musings about Clemson athletics, thank you for tuning in, and go make sure to follow Faxon on Twitter. But Faxon, before we get into the where can we find you portion of this episode, give us a quick little rundown on Coach Poppy. It's more of rapid fire just because we're a little bit over time, but certainly wanted to add that because we've been having some coverage over here on our end, and you've been helping me out a ton getting up to speed.
Yeah, first and foremost, shout out to Coach Poppy, all the ladies and gentlemen on his staff, first-class people that I really can't endorse enough. I got the privilege of traveling with them throughout the course of this season as the primary analyst for Clemson men's basketball on the radio on 105.5 The Roar. And, man, those guys and ladies are just awesome. Like, I've got nothing but positive things to say. Such a personable staff, such wholesome people that are about what they preach, which is the Clemson way, in my opinion. So shout out to all my guys and girls over there. Really love women's basketball, and I'm super appreciative for those relationships. As far as what the coaching staff has been doing in the portal, Ruzna Augustin Nate from Georgia Tech, 11-point-per-game scorer her freshman year, 35% from 3 on volume, had an injury setback, kind of got phased out of the rotation on a top 25 Georgia Tech team this year that made the NCAA tournament. Looking to get her back into form, 2 years of eligibility, really nice get. Taylor Johnson-Matthews from DePaul, 15-point-per-game scorer this year in the Big East, 5'9" with a nice wingspan. They project her to play more at the 3 and maybe go 3 guards like they did at times this year, but she's switchable. She can move. She can get after on the defensive end, and she can shoot the 3 ball. I think that's a really nice addition. You get Rachel Rose from Wofford, who was one of the most coveted players in the entirety of the portal. I broadcasted a handful of her games over the years at Furman. Rachel Rose is a freaking dog. She is a dog, and I don't give that title out lightly, Grayson. You know that by now. Rachel Rose is a freaking dog. If you're not going to watch Clemson women's basketball this year, you're missing out on the Rachel Rose show because I think she's going to have a phenomenal season. Triple-double machine at a 5'6" guard at Wofford. She can pass. She can defend. She's in the passing lanes. She's hitting step-back threes. Rachel Rose is the truth. I think that's the best get of this portal class. You also get Demaria Hines from Wake Forest, 9-5 player this year. Really nice rotational big for Coach Poppy that's got a chance to start. 6'2". She's got some size on her as well with some muscle, so really good, and she should be able to hold her own in the ACC as she proved this year at Wake. You pick up Perriman from Tulsa. Clemson's got an assistant coach that used to be on Tulsa's staff, so I wasn't too surprised to see Hadley Perriman make the trip to Tigertown. She was a 9-9 player with a couple blocks, a steal, and a couple assists this year. She's versatile. You can line her up in a plethora of positions. She can shoot the three ball. I think that's a really nice rotational addition for Coach Poppy and staff. So those are some of the names you're looking at right now in the transfer portal, in addition to returners of Raven Thompson, Hannah Cohn, and Mia Moore. I think you're shaping up to have a better roster this year in Tigertown. And if you're not going to take anything away from this women's basketball segment, listen for 10 seconds and hear me out because I'm being serious. The fact that Sean Poppy won 14 games last year with that roster is a miracle. Sean Poppy is a miracle worker, truly. He is a great coach. And if we can get really good players here to Clemson, which this staff is continuing to do with 2 top 100 recruits coming in, some of the highly coveted names in the portal coming in, Clemson women's basketball is going to be a premier sport. They doubled attendance this year. They won more games and ACC games than the year prior with a vastly less talented roster. I really encourage you guys to check out Grayson, all the work they're doing on TigerNet with women's basketball, and show up to Little John Coliseum next year. Tickets are never more than $5 to $10. You can sit anywhere you want. You can get right up near the front. All the girls come up in the stands after the games. Bring your kids, bring your daughter, bring your wife. It's a cheap date night, if anything. They play a really entertaining brand of basketball. They chuck a ton of threes, and Sean's got a lot of energy. It's a great product, and I wouldn't sell you guys on something I didn't believe in. This new wave of Clemson women's basketball is going to be the one that puts it on the map in the athletic department. It's been a dormant program since Coach Davis's departure. It's back with Coach Poppy. Utmost confidence in saying that, Grayson.
You talk about energy there. God, that's got to be the most entertaining guy on the sideline to be able to watch.
He's a maniac. I love him, man. He's having conversations with us as the radio guys during the game sometimes. We missed a ton of layups this year, so Coach Poppy was always turning to ask me, and I'd have to hit the old mute button and tell him what we are on layups. You know, he's screaming. He's down on his knees. He's jumping around. He's firing up the crowd. I love that guy, man. I really do, and I'm really grateful for our relationship that we've been able to cultivate, and I'm so glad that you've been able to get in with him as well, Grayson, and do some great stuff on TigerNet because women's basketball is the fastest growing sport in the country right now at the collegiate level. Clemson's got the resources. They've got the finances. They've got the stadium. They need the support from the fan base, and we need people to start coming to games like they do for gymnastics and softball. I promise they're going to start winning, but they need your support to do it.
And there you have it there, and this is going to be the conclusion of our episode with Faxon Childress. Faxon, before we let you go, thank you for taking the time also. Guys, if you've stayed through the entire episode, you're a real one. You're a dog, as Faxon likes to say. But Faxon, where can the TigerNet faithful find you?
TigerNet faithful, you can find me on Twitter at Faxon Sports, on Instagram at Faxon Childress, just my name. And then you can listen to me from 9 a.m. to noon on 105.5, 97.5 if you're in the Spartanburg market on the Roar. We have an app that you can download and listen to us from anywhere in the country. We have people that travel all the time that tune in. Had my guy that was out in South Dakota a couple weeks ago. Had a guy out in Wyoming. We've had people listening in Japan on vacation and on trips for work. Get the app or tap in on the website at theroarfm.com and go to the Listen Live section, 9 a.m. to noon. My co-hosts and I, John Haidt, have a ton of fun. We talk ball. We keep it loose, and it's never too serious. So get in with us on the phone lines, the text lines. We would love to hear from you guys, pick up some new listeners. And we appreciate everybody that already tunes in and appreciate everybody that tunes in to the Orange Crush podcast as well.
There we go. There we go. Guys, thank you as always for tuning in. Thanks to our title sponsor, Chick-fil-A, for making it happen. Not going to grab that for lunch today, but certainly a consistent part of Grayson Mann's food pyramid, if I do say so myself. But guys, thank you as always for tuning in. Subscribe for more and stay tuned for more episodes, more news. Backage ball is just getting underway. It's the main focus now for TigerNet coverage. Guys, thank you as always for tuning in. Subscribe, and thank you. God bless y'all.